Hey there, everybody out there on YouTube and Facebook. This is Chris Nicholson, and right now I have in front of me my iconic Casio Arranger workstation. This is the MZ2000, and the reason it's iconic because it broke a lot of rules, especially in its old field. This keyboard, there's been many rumors about who helped make this keyboard, and I can explain in another video, which I am. By the way, I'm doing many series of videos on this because you cannot talk about this keyboard in just one video. So this video is actually talking about the casing, the appearance, what the buttons stand for, how the screen turns on, different features of the keys, and basically just mostly the overview. So we're going to start on the speakers. Over here you have a woofer, and you have a tweeter, and you have a bass port. So when you hit those bass notes on the speaker, they really stand out. Even in the highs from the tweeter, it kind of gives it like a full nuance of the sound, and it's not just coming out of a regular keyboard. So you can actually hear everything in your face, especially if you're doing like the 16-track sequencer, which it actually has on here. These act as studio monitors, so it's pretty cool. All right, over here on the left hand side you have your power switch, which I call it the soft power. The reason I call it that is because usually on sometimes higher end keyboards or digital pianos, the power switch, when you turn it on, you hear actually the power going on. You hear a click, or if you turn it off, it turns off very suddenly. This one, it has a soft power switch, which means it turns on and turns off, you know, without any too much noise, and it doesn't sound like it's hurting the machine. You have your volume control, so you can turn it all the way up to max or all the way down to min. You have your pitch bender and your modulation wheel. Of course, you have your assignable jack. And what that does is that if you want to trigger the Leslie or trigger some kind of effect or even an LFO, you can actually do it on there. Okay, on this side you have your microphone input, and you have your headphone input, and also you have your microphone volume on here. So not only that you can use this as a Arranger workstation, but you can also sing into it. Now here's where it gets exciting. Of course, you have the 61 full-size keys, just like piano-size keys. But the best thing about the 61 Velocity full-size keys is that it's not just touch-sensitive. It's also after-touch. The keyboard have after-touch sensitive on here, which is really good. So you could press down on the keyboard and get some really cool expressions. Now, if you look on top of the keys, you have 61 keynote percussion. Now, each drum beat is all different. I'm sorry, and each drum patch is all different. Of course, you got your rock kits, you got your house kits, you get your 808s, and also you have a sound effect kit on here. Not only that the keyboard has percussion all the way throughout the keys, but also if you press your octave down, you get octave percussion going all the way down to probably even more than 61 notes. All right, we're going to start to this panel on the left over here, which is your song sequencer. On the song sequencer, you have your pattern sequencer, that's 8 tracks, and you can use that throughout any function of your rhythm controls. You have your multi-track sequencer, which is 16 tracks, which is linear. That means that any track of the 16s can be assignable to what you want, how you want it, and how you would like it to sound. You can mix it, you can override it, or to say, yeah, you can override it, you can overdub it, and you can punch in and punch out. You have an easy recorder. That means that you could just press the record and start playing, and it will record whatever setting that you have. You also have your song studio, which means that you can actually set up your chord structures, your fill-in structures, and the way how you want your song, and easily interact with the multi-track 16-track sequencer and your easy recorder. Over here, you have your rhythms. You have 130 rhythms, which are mostly 120 preset rhythms and 10 users. I'm sorry about the light actually hitting it. Over here, you have your display mode. The display mode goes in 4 different kinds of the way how you want your display to look. So you can have it in a big mode, you can have it in a piano mode, the score mode, and I think the other one's a mixer mode, which is pretty cool. You have your contrast, so if you want it to the screen to be a little bit brighter or to be less bright, you can adjust it from there. You have your one-touch preset, so any of the preset rhythms that you have on here, once you touch the one-touch preset, it sets up the whole keyboard to be exactly how the company intended to be. So say for instance, if you press a reggae rhythm, you probably have steel drums on the right hand. You have your settings mode, which is actually your global mode. You have your aftertouch control, so you can set the aftertouch to do anything you want. You have your interactive accompaniment, which that stands for if you press a major, minor, or 7th chord, different chords will change the rhythm. So it will not be the same rhythm all throughout the time. And that's with the intros, the endings, and all the variations, including the fill-ins. Your split point means that you can actually split the keyboard throughout how you want it, up or down, from bass register to treble register. Over here you have your different modes over here. You have your full range chords. Means you can actually set the piano as in a regular piano mode, press the chords, and you could play your accompaniment that way. You have your finger mode, which means it sets up the left side, and you can use, your chords just using all 5 fingers, all 4, recognize the chords that way. Or you have the Casio chord. The Casio chord was their trademark as in one finger mode. So there's your fingering modes right here. Over here is your style controls. Now we're going to start with the 4 variations. You have variations 1 through 4, and as I said, with the interactive accompaniment, major, minor, or 7th can be changed. You have your ritardando, means you can slow the rhythm down at any time doing the ending intros throughout the whole sections, basically. Fade in and fade out, you can fade in the rhythm, fade out the rhythm. Fill in, back, normal, next. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because if you're on variation 1 and you press fill in back, it's going to be a different fill in to go from variation 4. If you press variation 4 and press fill in next, it's going to take the fill in back, which is this fill in right here, and give us its own variation. And that's throughout all of the variations. So you have a whole combination of fill-ins, not just one fill-in on each style, which is pretty cool. You have your intro and endings. You have 1 and 2 of both. You have your break, which means it's just like a silent little pause when you press the break button. Your stop-start, your synchro start, and your synchro stop, which means that you can start the song at any time or stop the song at any time as you please. You have the accompaniment disc volume, which they both share the same volumes. Your tempo up and down. Over here you have your combinations, which applies to all of this section right over here. Your effects, synthesizer, which you could change the parameters on your effects, synthesizer, mixer, and your drawbar. We're moving on to the sliders. We have 9 sliders here. Now, you have 8 sliders right over here for the mixer, and this is your additional slider. Now, if you're using the drawbar mode, you have all 9 sliders right here, and this could be used as part of your drawbar mode over here, which is pretty cool. You have your LCD screen, which is basically in full graphic mode. And of course you have 5 different optional buttons on each side of the screen, as you have 8, or as to say 16 optional buttons on the bottom. You have your page up and page down, which those are for the submenus and the different pages that you want to go through. Okay, let's start over here. You have your jog wheel. So instead of pressing up and down, which you can, or you can just press the jog wheel to go faster in your searches. Transpose. That is definitely a must if you wanted to transpose stuff in a different key. Now you have your different banks right over here, which is your registrations. Now the registration banks on here, you have 8 sets and you have 8 banks. Auto harmonizing. That means with one key on the right hand side you could play a whole chord. Or if you wanted to play arpeggiation, you can. Now, this is where it also gets interesting. You can assign 2 voices to the lower and 2 voices to the upper. So you can have 2 different kind of basses, or if you want bass and you want viola strings, and you want piano, and you want a choir, you can have them all at the same time. Plus you could set your own separate levels from the mixer. You have your sustain, which is basically almost the same thing as a sustain pedal, but in a button form. You have your MIDI. You can get to choose whatever MIDI parameters that you can edit, and you can make the keyboard the way how you want it. So if you want the accompaniment to MIDI out, you can actually do that. And or if you don't want, if you just want your playing the MIDI out and just the accompaniment not to, you can trigger other sound modules too to actually format with that. I forgot to tell you with the registration, you can actually store your own presets and you can select it from here. Okay, over here you have your disk, and that's revolving with the floppy disk drive right over here. As I said, you could have the high density and the double density floppy disk. You have your help menu. Your help menu is dealing with your demo 2 disk. If you don't have the demo 2 disc, you could go on CastilloMusicForums.com and download the demo 1 and demo 2. The demo 2 disc, when you press the help button, it will tell you, it's basically like your virtual manual. It'll tell you everything about the keyboard. And you have your multi-demo button. Demos on here are, I think they're like around 25, I may be wrong, 25 or 24 demos on here. And they are sick. Plus you have disc demos that are phenomenal. Okay, so this is the area where we basically will mostly be using on this keyboard. Over here you have 4 different kind of DSPs, digital sound processings, right here. So you can assign different kinds of reverbs, effects on there, which are really cool. You have your own dedicated reverb button, own dedicated chorus button, and your master. So your master controls any kind of effect. So if I put reverb on here, that's any kind of effect throughout the whole keyboard. You have your display hold. So this display will sometimes change really quickly, but you can hold it down with the display hold. And here's your exit button, anytime you want to exit out of any category. And last but not least, you have, excuse me, you have your tones. Now, this is where it gets fun. You have 487 normal tones. You have 20 drawbar tones. You have 15 drum kits. And you have 40 user program. And you can split or layer them. That means you have 4 different elements of what your tone wants to be. And I could show you that because I actually made another video that I made my own personal sounds, which I'm going to show you again later on for the MZ2000. And this keyboard is sick because it's definitely a full-blown synthesizer. You can design whatever tone you want the way how you want it. Okay, so now that we covered the front part of the paneling of the MZ2000. Oh, by the way, as you can see, it's casing. Whoever designed the casing of this was a genius. because no matter what angle that you look at the casing of this keyboard, it is definitely professionally designed. Okay, so now we're going to go to the back of the keyboard. There you go. It stands its name, Casio. And people are asking, what is this right here? The reason keyboard companies actually put that there is because sometimes inside of the keyboard it can overheat, and those are ventilation for whatever source is overheating. Okay, so you have your power supply jack right over here, and that's what it looks like. And this is a DC 6 volt power supply, which I'll show you also that. You have your line in, which are 1/4 inches. I'm sorry, your line outs, and you have your line ins. And you could bypass the line ins if you wanted to. Okay, over here you have your expression pedal and you have your sustain pedal. Expression pedals are definitely important, especially if you're an organ player and you wanted to use a foot volume pedal. Plus that pedal is also assignable. Both of the pedals are assignable. You have your MIDI in, out, and through. MIDI in and out is used on most keyboards nowadays, but you hardly see a through on a lot of keyboards. It's mostly in and out. You also have your computer connections. Back then they didn't have any USB. They had one called to host. So you can pick either Mac, PC1, PC2, which I really don't know what that means with the PC1 and 2, because all I know that there is just one PC, and also you have your regular MIDI. Just to show you, I'm here bending down. This is the foot switch that I'm using right now. So it can be used in any kind of piano foot switch. This one is the Casio SP3. So I'm using that for now because all my other foot switches are packed up in a box. And here is your main power source. Now, you cannot buy any other power source except this one. The reason why is because it uses its own different kind of voltage, and it has to be the right power source. If you use a different one, you'll end up burning out the machine. This is a model 8016 ML, and this is the 16-bit converter right over here, which is yeah, this is most important. If you have this power source and you have an MZ, please do not lose it. This cord goes straight to the keyboard from the main box to the power outlet, which is right over there. Alright, so this is my first video of the MZ2000. There's more to talk about on this keyboard. Now, before I let you go, I'm going to turn on the MZ2000, and this is what I mean by a soft power on and soft power off. So once I turn it on, it presents itself very professionally. Now, when I turn it off, I have to hold down the keyboard and then let it go. So when I let it go, it turns off. Just like that. For some of you new people that will turn it on and off, it's very tricky, because I had to practice myself how to do it on here, which is pretty cool. Now, a lot of people's asking about the red felt. I put that on there because it kind of looks good for me, just like when you're sitting at an acoustic piano, and so it will not slam too hard back when you press the keys. Alright everybody, so this is my first review of the Casio MZ2000. I hope you enjoyed it, just like how I made this a review. And please write, click like, subscribe, and join me on my second video. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.